Hey there, Tex.
Good afternoon, folks.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm using my wrong email address.
Johnny made it.
Yeah, well, it's been referred to the speech therapist now, so on to the next stage.
The fight with pseudo authority, eh?
It's so strange. Something they've been doing for 4 years is suddenly not possible.
I've been there, having rationality discussions with care workers. Yes, I get it.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, Adam. Machine's being a bit slow. I may need to move to another machine.
We're doing this now every meeting. This hello, my name is Sticky.
Yes, actually, I tried to instill this back about 6, 8, 9, 12 months ago. It just never stuck. So, yes, there's been an expectation for this to be in every meeting. It happens in OSC every meeting. The other committees I'm still working on. Great question.
leading with by example.
I have mine in a saved note. You're muted.
Hi.
Welcome
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, that's an interesting issue. So I'd proposed an agenda via the Slack channel. I've just pasted it in to the chat. Were there other items that people wanted to raise today? And is there anything that people would like to raise as being particularly urgent? I've trimmed from it some of the items that I've marked as being optional. I don't think we need to go through those, and some of the items are by way of update. So the first item, sorry, Marcus.
Oh, all good. I just wanted to say this is a long agenda, so if there is something from my side like questions, then no need to spend too much time today here.
Okay. The only question from your side would be that I'd raised with the ISC inviting you to either the next ISC meeting or the one after that, where you could raise the issues that you mentioned about the remit directly with them, if you wish, with a wider audience. So we can take that offline, Marcus.
Yeah,
Sorry.
exactly what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, great. So this could be either next Monday or the Monday after, depending on which is more convenient for you. Great. So the first item on the agenda was just to record that we had an off-chain vote about the new remit. The outcome of the vote was that, if I recall correctly, that 7 members voted in favour of the remit with Ben's proposed amendment, and 1 member abstained. 2 members did not vote on that. So I would say that the remit is agreed, and we should proceed on that basis with majority. There were a set of revised questions which we pasted in the chat. If committee members want to make any suggestions for improving those questions, please do so. Unless there's something critical, I don't think we need to discuss that in this session. Johnny.
The first question is this denoting the kind of applicants you want to receive. It says, describe your experience in developing and implementing core Cardano blockchain technology or any other blockchain if applicable. Does that limit the pool somewhat, or are these optional questions?
Yeah, these questions that will be put to all the candidates, Johnny. So that I think was carried over from the last elections. If we felt we wanted to broaden the candidate pool,
Well, it's just that. Well, I guess I honestly answered if it was in the last one. No, I wasn't. No, I was in the one before, so I might not have been so explicitly asking for core experience.
Right.
I didn't have it. I didn't implement any core technology or write code for core, and I ended up on this committee. So I'm just wondering about that question.
okay. So why don't you propose a broader set of questions?
Maybe just remove the word core.
Well, so the question is, so the question, I think, is: are we happy with the development experience? Neil.
It's a question. If they say, they can answer it any way they like in some sense. Yeah, I mean, all we're saying is it's a question we'd like to have answered, right? But if they say, well, I got other experience, but not core experience, that's equally, I'm just saying we're not looking, these are not gating questions, are they?
But people might interpret them as such just on appearance. But I'll go to the next.
Well, the point is, we are trying to elicit the information from the individuals applying so that people can make an informed choice. So what, in that case, how would you change that wording? That's all.
Remove the word core is my suggestion. But yeah, just any technology on Cardano rather than specifically core repositories.
Can I suggest, instead of removing the word core, that we say core and other Cardano technology?
Yes.
Okay.
Or about relevant Cardano technology?
Well, what's relevant,
Whatever the participant considers relevant to voice in their application.
But I like Benjamin's approach personally. I think that gets it. The point is you're trying to tease out technical expertise from them. Yeah.
I want to acknowledge the hand order at this point.
I was just going to go on record as saying, having been in this committee for 1.5 years, I've never once actually needed to leverage any of my technical expertise that I've developed over the last 2 decades. So whether or not that should be a criteria question is questionable to me.
I find it strange.
Tex, you're next, bud.
Yeah, apologies. I was trying to write this out so you guys could read this as well. But another way of stating is this here, where you can just drop in that experience or knowledge with core Cardano is preferred. I know that puts it as an afterthought, but that does pull it from the main
I
statement.
still don't understand why we're leaning towards you must have worked for IO, Twig, or Well-Typed or PNSol in the past in order to qualify. Like, why is that relevant to the ongoing remit of this committee?
We do say any other blockchain, Cardano or otherwise blockchain in the original question. So what we're looking for, people who have technical experience of interacting with core chain network at a core level, aren't we? We're looking, we don't want marketing people turning up. We just understand marketing about this. Do we? Not in the TSC.
But I mean, we're asking them for blockchain technology. So like, why the capital C core Cardano, right?
And developing or implementing rather than just like knowledge of.
Do you want, okay.
I think it's different from like what the conversations we've had with the OSC on the maintainer retainer role to like actually get commit access to a repository versus serving on a committee doesn't necessarily mean that you must have been a developer that's contributed to one of the Intersect owned Haskell repositories is the only way you could possibly have that kind of relevant experience.
I don't see that as the implication here, but that's. But
that again might be a privileged position, having been on the other side of the fence from some of us that haven't been contributors to those repositories. So it does feel like gatekeeping.
Yeah. Okay. So.
But yeah, sorry, Sebastian, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm with you, Jonathan and Adam, on this. Really, the less we be, I think you want to be clear about the relevant Cardano or Cardano knowledge is preferable. It's good to have, right? That you know how Cardano works, and ideally we have technical discussions here. You must have not needed to be implementing a node for Cardano, but I think you need to know how the protocol works, right? A very technical SPO would be wonderful to have here. Also, your contributions, Adam, for example, you never implemented on the Cardano node, but you had lots of technical understanding still, right? So I think anything we can get that from an answer from our candidates is would be good to have. So I would also just say drop core.
Okay, so let's work on a rewording out of band. Were people happy with the other two questions? I can. Does everyone have access to those questions? Johnny?
Just to double check, belt and braces, do all of the examples given in the third question actually apply to the TSC's activity over the last year and future activities?
I think program management is the most contentious, but it is fairly generic. So whatever comes, I think will be covered.
Yeah, it looks good to me. We've removed any reference to, budget management or procurement
Yeah.
processes. But yeah, we would like to know if you've been a technical writer or otherwise been involved in kind of like these high level oversight and management roles. So that gives people the opportunity to play jazz and let us know what's important to them, like Sebastian suggested earlier.
Do you want me to add technical writing to the list of examples, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, we could, just I had kind of already inferred that myself because it's in the previous one of
Yeah.
doing research papers, project briefs, and technical communications.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so we'll refine the wording out of band, and then we'll pass that on to Intersect to provide to the election candidates. Great, thanks, everyone. Second item on the agenda was to revisit the discussion last week on the Laos SIP. Adam Moore, Nicholas, do you want to lead the discussion on that?
Yeah, so I'm not sure. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend last week, so I don't know what the conversation inside the TSC was. I know we did not have a chance at the CIP editors meeting yesterday to bring up the Laos CIP for discussion. So it is going to be on the next docket, which is in 2 weeks on Tuesday for the CIP editors. So hopefully by then, I know Sebastian attended, hoping to have some discussion about the Laos CIP, but we unfortunately didn't have the time to get to it. So yeah, we are going to try to make a dedicated CIP editors meeting in 2 weeks to table Laos and really have some good open and live conversation about it.
That sounds just about what we wanted to do, right? So I think we agreed also last week that maybe having the discussion, because nobody read the paper other than me and Nicholas, was not the time to have yet. We need to have it another time. In 2 weeks, Tuesday, sounds very much perfect to have it there. And I think then any interested TSC members should just join there. It kind of addresses also the point that the monthly meeting used to be always exactly at the time slot on Wednesday, last Wednesday, or in this case by 1 week shifted because of the Node Diversity Workshop. So I think there wouldn't be a conflict for the SIP editor one in 2 weeks. Sounds like a perfect next step. And I already asked around, maybe we could shift the monthlies of the Laos SIP project in general, or not the SIP project, sorry, the Laos project at IOE on like maybe the last Tuesday of the month or so. So we have less conflict with the TSC and we can have more opportunity to chime in there. But yeah, so I would want to kind of, not sure we need to vote, but I would say that let's have the discussion next Tuesday in 2 weeks.
And one of the things that did get raised yesterday during the CIP editors meeting is that we are happy to add channels as necessary when there is something that's a CIP that needs like a working group or a discussion forum. We can add that in the CIP editors Discord if that's desirable. So we can make a dedicated communications and coordination channel in there if that's more preferable to members than using an intersect only area where it might be slightly less public.
I would even like to say that I think just on the volume of comments we had on the SIP PR is kind of already a good amount of it. There has been some very clarification question only, or just I did a PSA, or maybe this is worth to go on the PR, but maybe somebody wanted to just have a quick chat about something rather than a proper review comment. So I think the layer SIP could warrant such a channel, and I'd be happy to look at it also as a SIP author here.
So, Ben, you mic'd up. Did you have a comment? We didn't hear you.
Nothing here.
Okay, so I'd outlined a proposed procedure in the Slack chat as requested, and so I can paste that here for clarity. If there is a major change to Laos, then there might, the discussion last week indicated that a new budget proposal might be required. That will be initiated by IO and put to the DREPs for approval. And of course, if the DREPs would say, well, we don't want the revised version, then I imagine we would have to stick to the original definition, or else revoke the contract completely. But hopefully we don't get to a situation like that. I'll paste that in a second. Anything else that anyone wants to add on that discussion?
Can I ask who would be the executive authority for doing such an verification? That would be the steering committee, would it? Or would it be the board?
I think it would be following the direction of the DREP vote and then executing the DREP vote's outcome. But who executes it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
As I understand the procedure, Neil, if the DREPs, what we're anticipating based on last time was we would be in a position to put forward a poll to the DREPs and SPOs. You should exclude the SPOs from the discussion on any proposed change. But if there was then an appetite for change, that a new budget proposal would have to be put forward, and that would have to be ratified by the DREPs in the usual way. So that would have to get DREP approval. The relevant vendors, presumably IO and any others, would need to do that, and then
they would have to propose. Surely, once you've the thing that I am trying to avoid is I'm just trying to think procedurally, right?
Yeah.
IO have proposed, assuming that this is not acceptable to the DREPs, I don't know how they would have to come up with something that was suitable.
Yep.
I would make the assumption that the original thing they offered, they do not consider to be feasible. So it wasn't like they could fall back on something, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, then I mean, what happens is the original part of the original contract would have to be revoked if what was originally proposed was infeasible, and the developers would have to go into some kind of huddle with the DREP.
What I'm trying to say here is, I mean, but we it's not us who sets these procedures.
Oh, no, we don't set the procedures.
Right, I'm just thought, right. Well, that's what I'm trying. That's exactly what I'm saying. Is that particular contract managers outside our? So you know, I'm just asking, you know, who would run that procedure, and you know, given that we might trigger something, can we understand what we might trigger, please? Right, because if we trigger something, that's okay. Right, that's the point. Right. So how do we find that out? That's all I'm asking.
It's very early stages to
Okay. So no, so I'm just trying to work out someone. Yeah, I'm just saying. Look, we get painted as the black sheep in this. We're trying to make sure everything gets done right. We will make the say, but if we trigger something, I'd like to know how the procedure is going to work. Otherwise, it's all going to be made up on the fly, right?
Yeah. Well, we're not triggering it, Neil.
We're not triggering it. Okay, we're just providing input
And recommendations.
Okay.
We're not triggering anything. We're advising and recommending, but we're not triggering.
I would like to speak up here a bit. What you just posted also in the chat, Kevin, like kind of a proposed layer SIP procedure. I think it would be very important that we keep the technical conversation separate from the process change management consideration. The first couple of bullets, basically what we just talked before, is let's have a discourse about the proposal itself, right? The change to Cardano in one or the other like sessions. And it kind of stops there and maybe in the explainer bullet, right? After that, inform the oversight committee, which seemingly already happened. So somebody suspected the change. Another question is, how is that change managed in the intersect budget process? That is completely separate to what I think we should be having in terms of a discussion on whether the SIP is any good or not. And what is the thing gets triggered or what not? What I'm missing in kind of now looking at the process about that, and I can't really comment for IOE here at all, right? So I'm here as an individual and somebody who worked on the technical details on this, right? And not really on the budget process. And I'm not representing IOE in any capacity here. What I'm missing here as a TSC member is, where is the vendor involved in that process suggestion, even in this kind of change management or ask for a change management?
Yeah, so the vendor has been involved in initiating the discussion, Sebastian.
Well, is the vendor asking for basically approval of the change of the scope change? Are they acknowledging a scope change?
Well, we have Nicholas here, so
no, that's unreasonable. It's unreasonable to put. I mean, the vendor, they can't talk about. They can't talk for the vendor. I mean, is the vendor saying this is the same scope?
Actually, I'm not even the vendor in this case. I'm not part of IOE either, so I can't help you with that.
I know. I'm just saying. So the point is, we're going to make a technical assessment, right? Then I think we could do a gap analysis, right? And then basically the size of that gap, and then we have to ask people what they want to do about the difference. That's what I was seeing happening here. Is that reasonable? Right.
I'm even saying if anyone feels like there should be a change managed here, right? This potential scope change to be managed in the process, I would not wait for any kind of outcome in 2 weeks, or it should be rather earlier than later, right? Anything as early as possible is good here, no?
Absolutely. But the point, until this is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. I think we should ask the Intercept, what is its change management process? Let's find out, because I don't want to. I just don't. I want to be useful and helpful and make things better here. I don't want to be. I just don't want to create more pigeons to go flying because cats have been throwing amongst them. Okay.
Yeah, but given that there is no delegation of authority, then this has to go back. Any major change has to go back to 3 reps.
That would seem to be the law. I mean, otherwise someone is taking on authority. Well, someone has to.
Yeah, I'm just gonna, go ahead and echo kind of what Sebastian has said and others. Like, why are we even talking about needing to modify the contract or the budget or anything else? We clearly do not have that as a remit, and so all we can do is provide a technical assessment of the CIP as written, and then let what outcomes of that be what they may. If we're not trying to throw cats amongst the pigeons, why are we bringing this up and kind of thinly veiling and suggesting that this is outside of the scope of the budget that was proposed? If you're going to make allegations, just do it full-throated and stand up and do it, versus kind of these thinly veiled threats that get us nowhere and just keep us talking in circles. Like, either we provide a technical analysis or we don't. We're going to accuse IO of changing the scope of their budget, or we're not. And then everybody can decide which side of that they're planning on being on. For me, I'm not interested in addressing the budget. I'm interested in addressing the technical details of how this does or does not get implemented into Cardano.
Yeah, that's fine. I was only providing this because we had the discussion last week, Adam, and the question was how the process would play out as a whole. It doesn't mean that we are necessarily involved in all of the process. Johnny.
I mean, it seems like it's very much we'll cross that administrative bridge when we come to it, and other people will be responsible. So why speculate in advance and assume that it's going to be negative in the outcome anyway? It seems like unnecessary discussion at this point.
So if we're comfortable with that, so Sebastian, there's a or Adam, there's a SIP editors meeting in 2 weeks' time, you said. Do we want to arrange a discussion session, a technical discussion with the proposers before that SIP editors meeting, or do you want to cover it all in that meeting?
Let's plan on inviting, well, I'm going to set up a discussion channel inside of the CIP editors Discord that we can invite the authors as well as any relevant interested members of both the committee and the public to join in and start having async communications at least. And then we can plan on any discussion taking place during the CIP editors meeting if it's not possible to coordinate a secondary meeting outside, with coordinating everybody's schedules. So it might be easier to stick to inviting them to our meeting or us going to the CIP editors meeting to at least meet in the same spot of these kind of open standing time slots that are already on people's calendars.
Yeah, and the question is whether that gives enough time, because obviously the SIP editors meeting is quite a short meeting. There'll be more than this to discuss. Duncan.
Can I just ask? Maybe I've misunderstood what the proposal is, but I don't think just discussing it, like having everybody go to the CIP editors meeting, would be like an appropriate way of going into the technical details of Valiel's proposal, because the purpose of a CIP and the editors meeting is not really to discuss the technical details of the CIP. It's to make sure. I mean, the role of a CIP editor is just to make sure that the CIP follows the structure and it's kind of self-consistent and it follows a bunch of rules. It's not to say whether any particular idea within it is good or bad or ought to be done differently, or it's not really to opine on those matters. So if we're going to have a thing, if the TSC, which we're going to try and we decided that we want to give greater scrutiny to this because it's a big deal. I think it ought to be under the TSC in some way, like a subcommittee or just an ad hoc meeting or whatever. But I think just delegating it to the please go to the CIP editors meeting isn't quite the right venue for that kind of discussion.
I'm happy to have more discussion meetings, and I'm probably echoing also the other authors there. I just want to say that early next week. So probably Monday, Tuesday is the workshop. Wednesday, people are traveling back. A few of the authors are at that node diversity workshop. And so if we maybe next Thursday or Friday can be in advance of that. If Adam offers to use the SIP editor meeting as a first instance, I think it's fine if the SIP editors are fine with just using the whole of it, and then we can have the next one, or otherwise happy to kind of schedule it also another time, of course, too. So it must not be not the only one, and I'm happy to have. I appreciate your enthusiasm on having like hour-long discussions on it.
So so my understanding is the SIP editors meeting doesn't happen next week, Adam, correct?
Correct. It's in 2 weeks on the 30th.
Okay, so then let's array based on the discussion, Sebastian. Let's try to put aside a slot on Thursday or Friday next week as a kickoff. And one of the key things that we were trying to do from that was to get together a group that could work on an ELI 5 as an outcome. So to provide technical feedback on Laos, but also to consider how the ELI 5 could be written.
I want to point out that another reviewer on the SIP actually had the same feedback, that maybe a 5-minute read would be good to have, which is also echoing all the demands in the past of other SIPs, right? Like highly technical things are quite hard to track. And I can also say that I think most of the SIP editors should be, or SIP, not editors, sorry, the authors are probably just fine with doing that, right? Summaries are easy to write nowadays because you just generate them and you review it themselves, right? If they're correct, you can just publish it along it. And I think we're finding new forms about this with the SIP process in general. And I can now say as a co-author, I'm happy to do it also in this instance, right?
Yeah, what I see as being important is an evaluation of the positives and negatives of different approaches, Sebastian. And you won't necessarily do that directly from the SIP. So AI isn't good at doing an evaluation.
So it's not a summary, but it's an opinion, right?
No,
But,
it's information that allows decisions to be made. You can only do that by a critical evaluation. Yeah.
Okay, and it sounds like a different document than to what the other author or the reviewer asked for. And okay, looking forward to this one then too. I'm not going to write it then, as you seemingly don't want me to write it.
Well, very happy for you to write it if you wish. So certainly it's going to need your input.
I think you can.
Yeah, I will just reinforce what Duncan did mention, is that the CIP editors, we generally try not to be opinionated on, like, I don't like Laos, so I'm not going to merge this in, but we do want to be informed when there's been enough discussion to consider the discussion kind of closed or well-rounded and okay to merge. And that's where an appeal to more technical authorities to help us understand if enough conversation has happened to accept the SIP is a beneficial tool to the CIP editor body itself. Not necessarily that the editors' meetings are the place to go and have it out and have an argument about it. That probably is a separate hour, 2 or 8 meeting. But definitely just having people come in and say, yeah, I think this has been steel-manned enough, it's ready to be merged in, would be beneficial to us.
Great. So who would want to chair that session? Could be Sebastian, could be Nicola, could be Adam.
If we're aiming for like later next week, I can probably at least put something tentatively on the calendar and see who's willing to join in.
Yep.
I'm happy to chair it and bring people in and have a chat.
I'm happy to be part of it, but I guess that I have the same concern as Sebastian, which is that if we want to do a compare and contrast, having both Sebastian and myself can be useful for the input, but for the write-up itself, we are probably too much engaged into the SIP proposal to be part of the write-up.
Great. So Adam, you'll progress that. Great. Thanks. And if you post the details into the Slack channel, then we can sign up for it. Brilliant. So I'm just progressing through the agenda items. Scrolling back. Yeah. So next hard fork status. The next hard forks. So I'll cover that since it seems to be quite important. There's been some discussion with the release meetings about the upcoming hard forks. The next hard fork is expected to be an intra-era hard fork. It's not expected to have any major developments. There will be new Plutus primitives released in that, and they will need to have appropriate new parameter settings for them. So we need to discuss the procedure for that. And then the next major hard fork would be Dijkstra. The scope of that is not completely fixed, but is expected to include nested transactions. So what we're looking to do is to initiate reconvene the hard fork working group. The expected timelines for delivery for the intra-era hard fork that we would expect the code to be complete by early to mid-November, and then be aiming for an early 2026 hard fork, all going well. For the new era, which is codenamed Dijkstra internally, we would expect that to happen no less than 3 months after the hard fork. So we're looking for a mid-26 hard fork. So what we are thinking is now is the time to reconvene the hard fork working group on a lightweight basis, initially with a view to determining that all of the required scope has been identified for both of these hard forks, that the community is comfortable with the scope for those hard forks, and to raise awareness with SPOs, with exchanges, with wallets and other parties that this is going to happen. So I've been speaking to Lorenzo and Tex about doing that. We would need to set up an official Intersect group to do that. So, and then start to open it up. So as I said, start on a lightweight basis initially, probably on a possibly 4 week cycle. Then as the development completes, we can move to the usual process, engage with all of the relevant stakeholders, and then put forward the hard fork governance action. Adam.
Yeah, just thinking in reverse due to the kind of lengthy timelines that we have with these governance actions and how constitutionality has been framed. We need to have a protocol parameter update to have the Plutus cost models updated for the new primitives prior to any hard fork action happening, correct? But that means we have to socialize what the protocol parameter changes are going to be and then make the protocol parameter changes. So if we start working back, is it even feasible at this point, mid-September, to do a hard fork in January or February?
So technically, we could progress the hard fork without the primitives being enabled, Adam. So I think we can finesse that. The situation at the moment is the development is not complete. Until the development of the primitives is complete, we can't. The team can't do the costing, and the costing is needed to set the parameters. So there's definitely a timeline here. There's a sequence of events that has to take place. But as saying, the team is aiming for a hard fork in early 26. I think that's probably feasible.
Okay, yeah, this is something that came up during the first node diversity workshop. We had a good presentation by Ori. I can't remember his last name, but he's one of the guys involved in doing the testing suite for Ethereum clients, who basically said, like in the ETH ecosystem, they always have a hard fork scheduled every 6 months or twice a year or whatever. And then like they often don't hit it, but at least that allows them to kind of trace their timelines back to where feature complete needs to be locked in, or feature set at least needs to be locked in. And then you can judge go or no go based on that. Right now, it still feels like we're playing jazz on kind of the contractor IO's schedule in terms of whenever they're ready, we'll get around to it. So maybe it would help us to have a cadence. So we're not doing hard forks over the Thanksgiving and Christmas breaks and New Year's breaks that people take, or the European summer holidays and things like that, to where we actually have like a predictable working cadence as an ecosystem. Just something to throw out there as food for thought. But go ahead, Duncan.
What Adam is describing is what people also call time-based rather than feature-based releases or release schedules, which for those of us who have at times worked with IOG, it's something that has been argued about internally a great deal, with most of the developers being in favor, I should say. So you won't get much pushback on that idea, Adam, with the developers. But I mean, there's a bunch of sort of practical and social issues to work through to do it. But there are a lot of compelling technical and social reasons why you should want to do that, some of which you outlined. So yeah, I mean, I agree, and that's the standard name. So that might be helpful just to use common terminology.
Sebastian,
was that always do a kind of a hard fork event on the schedule, or just when you happen to have something which is relevant to, like, would you have empty protocol versions or empty eras? Probably not, right?
Yeah. So we actually did try to do this, Sebastian. So we did initiate exactly this time-based process, and the idea was we would set a deadline. We would collect the things that were ready by the deadline, and then we would go for the hard fork. And that persisted up to the point where somebody wanted something to be included in the hard fork and said, and therefore banned the hard fork until that feature was included.
Yes. This is what always happened, and it wasn't just hard forks. It was actually, we were trying to do it on a smaller scale with time-based releases, not just hard forks, even bigger. And you have to work with and against management to. I mean, management has to be fully bought into this to make it work, and they say they are, and then in practice they're not. So a bit of community pressure might actually help to say actually we want it. Because, as you say, I mean, it's very helpful for predictability for the rest of the ecosystem.
But then the community does have to be disciplined. As well.
You can't say hold the hard fork. This feature has to be included. That's the
community does have to be disciplined. Kevin Hammond, 2025.
I mean, it does make much more sense at the release level, even if our ultimate goal is to get it at the hard fork level. But there are certain boundaries like SPO buy-in that aren't going to happen on a timeline. But if we have a release candidate ready, say every 3 to 6 months, that may or may not involve a hard fork, then at least, I would actually say having the release candidate, having a piece of software to test downstream dependencies against, that is the burden of delivery for IO, ultimately. The hard fork certainly is, it's not the end of the road, but that is sort of where I feel like Intersect should be picking it up, selling that hard fork to the community to some extent, getting it approved and actually executing it on chain. I feel like that's all secondary to having a release, having a piece of software for the rest of the ecosystem to consume.
I believe the biggest value is, especially when we have this very big coordination events, right? It's not only one company, it's multiple, not one team, not one company, not even one kind of provider, right? There's kind of multiple actors, SPOs, but also integration to it. And so it's a highly coordinative event, hard fork event. And I think that makes sense there to kind of say, yeah, it always happens in April and in October, never else, right? But if we don't have agreement to get what we ship and by whom, and it might not happen this April, then we just skip it and we have the next one in October. So having the schedule is good to have, so everyone aims for the same thing. It might still not happen because we didn't get the agreement, which might happen now in a decentralized governance world, right? But I think getting a cadence helps in people kind of planning their lives around it too. And not only developers, but everyone. Maybe it should be like 4 candidate dates and we only execute 2 of them every year or so. Reminds me a bit also of like big Linux distribution release schedules, right? Like even
That's what I was going to comment.
Yeah.
Distribution release cycles and then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think set a twice yearly schedule. Get the hard fork committee to try to basically make the decision of what's in it, right? Because if that's what they do, and then basically hold people's feet to the fire to deliver it. If they say they can, hold their feet to the fire, and if it doesn't happen, then basically, I'm sorry,
you missed the boat.
Right, the feet are going to get burned because actually you can't rewrite the history. You've got to choose. You're either going to choose to have a public history of an intention, right? And I must admit, if you have timescales for this, you can plan holidays. As running a company, you know that you're gonna in this timescale you're going to need to do some Cardano changes, right? So I think a time-based schedule, right, in which the hard fork committee says, well, this is the people negotiate with the hard fork committee, you work out those answers, and then those commitments get locked in, right? Public embarrassment if you don't deliver.
Yeah, and as I think Sebastian pointed out, this is going to apply to all node developers. So if we have multiple nodes, everyone is going to have to meet the schedule.
Yes. Simple as that. Can't move it.
Well, yeah, I mean, all the node developers need to be updated, right? All the downstream indexers of those nodes need to be updated. All of the JavaScript libraries need to be updated. And so you can do that much better when there's a regular cadence and we know when we're doing those hard fork tests on the test nets and we're going through.
Because the problem is where people, I have this problem with people I work with. I've got to be careful. Because I work with certain commercial organizations that commit themselves to timescales that then slip like hell during the year and then work like mad in February because they have to spend all the money before the tax year is up, or the financial year is up. So the problem is getting people to work to the cadences. You will very quickly find that basically people are over optimistic, and then next time you adjust the cycle. Okay, but you have to have a cycle. You have to plan. It's the no battles won without a plan, but actually no battle goes to plan type thing statement.
Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Mike Tyson.
Okay.
Okay.
Doesn't mean the act of having a plan is a bad one.
Yeah, no, you should still have some sort of plan. You can't just chaos develop and hope for the best, right?
Yeah.
So like that's not how Cardano works.
If your goal is a release, you should plan to have a release.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. You gotta, and the best will of mice and men, it may not work out, but if it's basically because people have mispromised. I was trying to find a way of saying overextended themselves or just lied. Mispromised. You got to accept that.
Well, and in fact, having this, I'll acknowledge Duncan's hand in a second. That having the process is also a guideline for when you should cut content because you're trying to do too much in a single release. Exactly. I'll also say guidelines for releases that go with. I'll actually point to Mozilla because I know quite a bit about the release schedule, but also the ECMAScript standard is really applicable to having multiple node implementations here as well. So the notion that a feature has to be implemented across multiple implementations is definitely part of it. Go ahead, Duncan.
I was going to say, I mean, in a way, the reason that we can say that it makes sense to move to time-based releases now, or time-based hard forks now, is precisely because we want to move to a future in which there are or can be multiple implementations that are compatible, running on the mainnet. And we've totally been able to get away with feature-based releases, for the history of Cardano up to now, because there was one implementation. So you just wait until that one implementation is done. Obviously, that is not a good way of coordinating when you've got one or two or more implementations. So that's the kind of obvious juncture as to why does it make sense to change now? Because we want a future in which there are multiple implementations.
That's very much true. I agree. I want to also draw attention to, though, it's not only about nodes, it's also about the secondary and third and fourth kind of level of things which need to be ready, right? Which in the past was also not, people always wanted to have maybe a bit more bigger lead time, right? Having a node which you can already target as integration relying on the node as a dependency early enough is also good, right? So when we have a hard fork event schedule, it necessarily also means we need to have maybe by 3 months before that a release candidate, which other integrations can happen on, right? So it kind of gives everything a bit of a schedule to work by, and maybe if you just didn't get it this time, then we just need to push it out anyways. But this is kind of, it will just ratchet through, something like this, I can imagine.
Johnny.
Yeah, and we've already said that it's good to have a schedule in place for people who have to implement their own sides to be compatible with a hard fork, but it also would be very good for the reps and SPOs voting on hard forks to know when they're coming up on a biannual basis, like twice a year. They know when that info action is going to hit, or the hard fork action is going to hit. Sorry. So they can be prepared for the voting, and it will also encourage them to learn more about what's in these things before they come up, because they're not just randomly getting them appear.
Nicola.
Yeah, I love the discussion. I think that it's definitely something that TSC could invest on and say, okay, we want to push for a release calendar. And actually, I saw at the same time that Sebastian was saying that it might be an item for the diversity workshop. It's definitely something on which they can be the voice of the Adam and Sebastian can be the voice of the TSC and say, okay, we'd like to promote this. Will you be on board on this? Do you want to work with us on this? And then we can come with a proposal for the community saying, we'd like to set this, and actually also have feedback from that developers to see if, I'm pretty sure they will be happy with that because it will simplify their life actually. But we can try to work on the details and see what kind of calendar we should propose, because there's very likely a set of candidates for the next hard forks then that we need to groom, then work on this candidate, and then come with something that can be pushed into the hard fork. There's definitely a lot of details here, and it's definitely something I would love the TSC to take over and take the responsibility on. Great.
So I'm conscious of time. Should we take the other items on the agenda next week? Is there anything critical? We've mentioned the Node Diversity Workshop. The organisers have promised to provide a summary of that workshop. I'll circulate that with this group and with the community.
I will not be available because of it, right? So, but I think that's quite natural. Update from the Layer 2 working group, nothing crucial right now, other than Arnaud actually pitched this antithesis work, which is going to be a topic in the workshop next week there. Interesting recording if somebody wants to know what kind of autonomous fault injection testing they have been doing with Cardano nodes, but you might have heard. Anything else? Nothing from that side.
Great. Yeah, so we Security Council update. I'll provide next week again. Nothing critical there. from the parameter committee, we will need to raise the parameter update to max TX execution units. The timeline for that will be on or after October the 7th. So we need to start thinking about preparing the governance action, getting the metadata ready, and then ensuring that this is put forward by Intersect in the appropriate timescale. So 17th of September now. We still got a couple of weeks to do that, but we're getting close to the point where we want to make that change.
Should we start working on the metadata for that info action? I know we've been like socializing this change now, like we've done the 90-day period and everything. So getting the action ready so we could drop it right on the 7th. I mean, that's only 3 weeks out now at this point.
Yeah, so I've already got draft metadata. I prepared it about 3 months ago, Adam, but we need to go back to it and make sure that it's still relevant, and pass that on probably to Ryan, as well as to this group. So the first thing to do probably is to pass it on to this group for confirmation, and then we can raise it. We can start to put together the actual governance action.
Okay, well, given we're at or over time, let's plan on circulating that async, and then we can work it into a future meeting to vote officially on the metadata and forward the action.
Yep. Sounds good to me. Great. So thank you everyone for attending this meeting. I'll catch you all again very shortly. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks all.